The movie begins in a secluded suburban location where Chris lives alone after separating from his ex-wife. While exercising on the balcony, he gets a call from his ex-wife, Jamie, who asks him if he had finalized the signatures on the divorce papers. Chris was avoiding signing the papers because once he did, he felt like everything was going to be permanent. Jamie mentions that their relationship had crumbled because Chris had given priority to his company instead of his family. Although he tries to defend himself by telling her that he had already sold his company, she is sure that he did it for the money instead of their family. After promising Jamie that he would get to it as soon as he could, he asks her to say hello to their daughter and hangs up. Later that night, Chris goes to the local supermarket to pick up some ice cream and meets Sky, a beautiful, blonde girl who asks him for his opinions on wine. After choosing one he thought was good, he hands it to her and introduces himself before she tells him her name, heading out of the market. Outside, Chris finds Sky by the door freezing and upset that her Uber had cancelled on her. Chris explains that he lives nearby and offers to give her a ride to her place. When they reach the motel she was staying at, Sky tells Chris that she was dreading going back into the house and facing her roommate because they had had a fight before she left. Chris offers to take her to his house until her roommate calms down and promises to drive her back. Accepting the offer, she drives off with him. When they reach his house, Sky sees the place and assumes that Chris was house-sitting for his parents, but he tells that he had built the house himself. After successfully selling an application to Google Play, getting the wine she had bought, he pours it for them both of them, then watches with surprise as Sky drinks it all in one breath. Smiling, he pours her another glass. Sky is impressed that Chris is able to retire so young and tells him about her sad ventures. From coming to the city to be a model to working as a waitress at the Kitty Warren bar. When she comments that she should have gotten them a second bottle of wine, Chris excitedly takes her to his cellar closet filled with bottles of wine. He then chooses one of the most expensive bottles in his collection and opens it up. The two stay up way past midnight talking and drinking wine until Sky remembers the time and tells him that he should take her home. Enticed with the beautiful Sky, he asks her to stay and they begin to kiss. Feeling the passion in the air, the two move from the couch to Chris's bedroom and spend an intimate night. When Chris wakes up in the morning, he finds himself alone in his bed and realizes Sky had left early in the morning. After leaving Chris's house before he wakes up, Sky heads back to the motel and is greeted by a worried Lisa who angrily asks her where she had been. Ignoring the woman and walking into her bedroom, hearing her roommate cry from behind the door and asking her if she was just going to leave her. Sitting alone at his house, Chris remembers the life he had with his wife and daughter and feels a sudden loneliness creep up on him. That night, Chris heads to the bar Sky had told him she worked at and finds her surviving customers. Smiling with surprise, she greets him warmly. He explains that she hadn't left her contact information and he felt like it was better to come to her workplace than to knock on her door. After her shift was over, the two head out for a walk and Sky confesses that she had never had a family, which affected her as an adult. As they continue to walk, he too tells her about how his parents had never been there for him, which might be the reason why he was obsessed with making security applications. When they get to his car, they see a man trying to break into Chris's car. When he tries to stop the robber, the aggressive man attacks him, fracturing his knee with a crowbar. After getting a cast for his broken knee, Sky drives Chris home and sits him comfortably on the sofa. Sky feels bad that Chris got hurt protecting her and offers to take care of him instead of the nurse he had hired. She seductively tells him that she makes great food and they would be able to spend more time together. Agreeing with her, he tells her that he would call and cancel the services of a nurse while she brings her belongings from her place. When she gets to the motel, she finds their landlord talking to Lisa and telling her that she was better off before Sky had moved in. Hearing what he had said, Sky tells him that he was only being jealous and heads inside. While Lisa demands an explanation, Sky starts to pack her suitcase. Lisa is devastated by the news that her lover is about to move out and begs her not to leave. Telling her that she knew, Sky slips with Lisa one last time before abandoning her to go live with Chris. After returning to Chris's house, the new couple spend a lovely evening together inside the jacuzzi out back. Then Sky helps him up into bed and gives him his pain meds. Chris stares at her for a few minutes and tells her that he was in love with her. Smiling down at him, Sky confesses that she has already fallen for him as well. Back at the motel, the landlord Ronald knocks at Lisa's door asking for the rent. When he doesn't get a response, Ronald uses his key to let himself in and calls out to his tenant. When he doesn't find her in the bedroom, he looks in the bathroom where he's shocked to find Lisa dead, having cut her wrists and bled out inside the bathtub. Ronald immediately calls the police and informs them about the incident. Once the police arrive and start their investigation, the detective looking over the case asks him about Lisa's roommate, whose name doesn't seem to come up in any of their databases. While resting on the couch of his house, Chris gets a phone call from his ex-wife, following up on the divorce papers. Apologizing for being late, he tells her that he had an accident and that he broke his leg. Jamie feels sorry about what happened and asks if it would make him feel better to see his daughter, offering to drive her up the coming Friday. Happy about the offer, he tells her that he would love to see them both. When his ex-wife asks who was taking care of him, he explains that he had hired a private nurse and closes the calls before she could continue asking questions. Needing help, Chris calls out to Sky but doesn't get a response. When he heads up to the bedroom, he hears the water running and realizes she was in the shower. On the bedroom couch, he sees her bag open and tries to look inside but accidentally drops it, alerting Sky to what he was doing. As he struggles to pick the bag up, Sky comes out of the shower and catches him red-handed. Embarrassed, Chris apologizes for what he had done, but Sky assures him that she too would have done the exact same thing if she was in his place, and then throws the towel at him, revealing her naked body. The next morning, Chris with his phone missing from his side. After repeatedly calling out for Sky, he gets up from bed and goes down to the living where he sees Sky's old roommate, Lisa's death, all over the news. Suddenly, he notices his new girlfriend get out of the car with a shopping bag in hand from the large French door. Typing in the code for the front door he had given her, she tells him that she had gone out to get them some fried chicken. Feeling a bit odd, Chris asks her if she had seen his phone. After telling him she hadn't, she offers to help him find it after they eat. Although he feels strange about giving such horrible news, Chris tells Sky about the death of her roommate and is shocked when he doesn't see any type of reaction from her. When he tells her that it would be best if she contacted the police, she smiles and tells him that would be stupid of her because she was the one who killed her. Chris seems disturbed and assumes it's a joke, but Sky assures him that it was not. She explains that although Lisa had intense jealousy issues, she had the perfect apartment to watch Chris from. She tells him that she has been watching him for the past 2 months and knew everything that happened in his house, including that he would be alone for the next 6 days. She had gathered enough information to find out where to bump into him to create the perfect coincidence. Angry, Chris yells at her to get out, but she refuses, closing all the doors with the automated system on his phone that she had stolen. When he tries to snatch the phone from his hands, she pushes him over and then electrocutes him, rendering him unconscious. Sky then ties him onto his wheelchair. Although he tries to yell for help, Chris knows that there was no one to save him. Angry, he asks the woman why she was doing this, to which she simply answers that there were things she needed from him because he was rich. Sky asks for all his security codes and then starts torturing him with a drill when he refuses to answer. At the motel, Ronald goes into Lisa's old apartment to clean up for the next tenant and happens upon the telescope placed in Sky's room. When he looks through it, he notices the house, and through the window, he sees Sky changing her clothes. Paying attention, he continues to watch the woman and sees the man she had kidnapped. After hours of torture, Chris gives her the information she requires to take over his life and needs him to behave further, so she can get him on a call with his bankers. Seeing a small opening, Chris tries to disarm Sky, but she manages to overpower him and then shows him a live video of his family, threatening their lives. After subduing him with the threat, she leaves him alone, tied up in the living room. On the TV, he notices Ronald come up the driveway. Realizing that it was his only way to freedom, Chris starts calling out for help. Once Ronald is inside the house, he sees Chris's fragile state and starts negotiating his freedom for money. When Chris agrees to give him a painting worth millions, he finally starts untying him from the chair. While getting him free, the two men notice Chris's car roll into the driveway and realize Sky had returned. Seeing the intruder in the house, Sky seems more relaxed than concerned and chases Ronald with a sword she had been keeping in hand. Cornering him in one of the rooms, Sky stabs Ronald, killing him swiftly. While Sky is preoccupied with Ronald, Chris manages to escape and stumble to the bike Ronald had left outside. While driving the automobile with his broken leg, Chris accidentally drives over a stone covered in snow and falls in front of a car, almost being run over. The man in the car hurries out and gets Chris into the vehicle while he tries to tell him about the murderous woman in his house. Calming him down, the man pretends to call the police as a distraction only to drive him back to his home where Sky is waiting at the front door, covered in blood. The two identity thieves put Chris back into his wheelchair and roll him into the house without his consent. Sebastian introduces himself as the man who had married Sky's mother when she was only 14 and after her passing, had nurtured the young girl's strange nature. Later that night, Sky and her lover Sebastian cut off Chris's thumb to gain access to the biometric scanner at the bank. The next morning, Chris's ex-wife and daughter come over to visit him as planned and are ambushed by Sky. After threatening their lives, she locks them up in the closet with Chris, who had been left there to bleed out. After Sky and Sebastian leave the house to get the bonds from the bank, Chris has his daughter go through the vents so she can open the door for them to escape. While they wait, Jamie tells Chris that she had moved the bonds from the box he had put them in, putting their assailants in an awkward position at the bank. As Sky and Sebastian rush back to the house, they find their hostages loose. Motivated to save his family, Chris surprises Sebastian with an axe and disarms him. While pointing a gun at Chris, Sky is overwhelmed by her demanding boyfriend and shoots him in the chest, giving her victim enough time to stab her with the axe. While the sound of sirens starts blaring outside, Chris and Jamie are saved by their traumatized daughter, shooting their assailant in the back. Before she dies, Sky looks up at Chris and tells him that her real name was Margaret.